You know that feeling. You're traveling, maybe you're in a hotel, maybe on a long drive, and you just desperately want a good cup of coffee, your kind of coffee. And you think, man, if only I had my machine right here. Well, it turns out a lot of people feel that way. So much so, there's this huge kind of hidden market booming around it. So today, we're doing a deep dive. We're going right into the global travel coffee machine market. Our mission, give you the real inside track on this industry. We've got a detailed market analysis, forecasts, the works. Yeah, we're aiming to really shortcut the learning curve for you. Expect some surprising facts, some pretty significant growth trends. It's kind of fascinating, actually.
It really is. And the source material we have is incredibly detailed. We're talking specific market values, projected growth rates, the KGRs broken down by region, even down to the country level. That kind of detail, that granularity, lets us see exactly where the action is,
Yeah.
where and how this market's really taking off.
Right. So as we unpack this, you'll get a sense not just of how big this whole thing is, but maybe more importantly, where the fastest growth is bubbling up. And that, we think, tells a really interesting story about how our habits are changing, especially when we're not at home. Okay, so let's get into it. The big picture first. Globally, back in 2021, this market was already worth, get this, $2,148.66 million.
Yeah, over $2 billion to start. But what's fascinating, I think, is the trajectory. It's not just a blip. That number is projected to hit $2,785 million by 2025. Okay, solid growth. But then look out to 2033, it's forecast to reach 4,678.87 million. That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 6.7% over that whole period, sustained growth.
Wow. Okay, just pause on that. 6.7% year on year. So something that maybe feels like a niche product,
Yeah.
like a travel coffee maker, it's turning into almost a $5 billion global industry.
Exactly. It really speaks volumes about how important that coffee ritual is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even when we're completely out of our normal routine.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's zoom in. Where's this happening? Let's start with North America. In 2021, the market there was $861.61 million, pretty hefty chunk of the global total. And it's set to grow, hitting over a billion, 1,086.15 million by 2025, and then up to 110.0 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of 5.84%. Solid.
Right. And within North America, no big surprise, the U.S. is the dominant player.
So,
$670.33 million back in 2021. That's projected to climb to $1,284.3 million by 2033. The CAGR there is 5.53%. So like you said, solid, mature, but definitely still growing.
and Canada, how's it looking up north?
Canada's showing good growth too. Started at $137.86 million. It's expected to more than double, reaching $292.43 million by 2033. That's a slightly peppier CAGR. Actually, it's 6.39%.
Okay, interesting. So a bit faster than the U.S.
But here's a real standout in North America, Mexico. It started smaller, $53.42 million in 2021, but it's projected to hit 133.87%. That's the highest in the region.
Whoa, okay, 7.87%. What do you think drives that?
Well, it could be a mix of things, right? Maybe increased travel, both business and leisure. Perhaps a growing middle class with more disposable income looking for that convenience. It definitely flags Mexico as, a really dynamic spot for this market right now.
Makes sense. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, what's the picture there? 2021 sales were $573.69 million. The forecast sees that rising to $735.24 million in 2025, and then landing at $1,202.47 million by 2033. The overall CGC for Europe, 6.34%.
Pretty comparable to North America overall. And within Europe, Germany is the heavyweight. $130.8 million in 2021, set to go to $258.53 million by 2033. That's a 5.80% CAGR. Stable, significant, but maybe not the most explosive growth.
Right, and the UK, also a big player.
Yep, UK strong too. Started at $102.12 million, projected to reach $193.6 million. If CAGR is 5.39%, and France is in a similar boat, a 5.23% CAGR. These are your kind of foundational European markets, steady eddies.
Okay, so established markets ticking along. Any surprises in Europe? Faster growers.
Definitely. Spain stands out with a projected CGR of 7.90%, and Denmark is even higher, an impressive 8.34% CGR.
Nearly 8% for Spain, over 8% for Denmark. Why do you think that is? Maybe later adoption catching up.
Could be. Or perhaps specific cultural factors, or maybe just a stronger trend towards that kind of travel convenience taking hold there more recently. It's interesting.
And it's not just those specific countries, right? What about the rest of Europe combined?
Yeah, that's another really interesting point. The category labeled Rest of Europe, basically grouping smaller markets together, shows remarkable growth. It jumped from $32.13 million in 2021 to a projected $85.38 million by 2033. And its CAGR is 8.90%. That's actually the highest in the whole European region.
Wow, almost 9%. So it's not just concentrated in a few spots, it's widespread growth.
Exactly. It suggests a broad-based accelerating demand across quite diverse European countries.
Okay, now, let's shift gears. You mentioned explosive growth earlier. Asia Pacific. Sounds like this is where things get really interesting.
Ah.
The numbers look big. $461.96 million in 2021, soaring to $11,197.79 million by 2033, and the CAGR, a whopping 8.26%.
Yeah, APAC is definitely a key region. Huge growth potential being realized. China, naturally, leads in terms of market size within the region, started at $164.46 million, projected to hit $453.96 million by 2033. That's a very strong 8.73% CAGR. Given the scale of China, that's massive.
Makes sense. But you mentioned a breakout star.
India, absolutely. While starting from a smaller base, $50.82 million in 2021, it's projected to surge to $153.32 million.
Yeah.
Now, the CAGR here is the highest in the entire region, 9.60%.
9.6%. That's incredible growth. What's behind that, do you think?
I mean, it points to classic emerging market dynamics, right?
Yes.
Rapidly growing middle class, huge increase in travel, both domestic and international, plus just a massive consumer base adopting new conveniences. India is clearly a hotspot.
Okay. What about other established markets in APAC? Japan, Korea, Australia?
They're all showing solid, steady growth. Japan, South Korea, Australia, Taiwan, their CAGRs are generally hovering between, say, 6.9% and 7.5%. Good, consistent upward trends in already developed markets.
And Southeast Asia. That's a big, diverse area.
Also contributing significantly. That block is expected to reach $116.19 million by 2033, growing at an 8.4% CAGR.
Very vibrant.
So strong growth across the board in APAC.
Yeah.
But is there another Resta story like in Europe?
Oh, yes. And it's even more pronounced here. If we look at the rest of APAC category, it has the strongest regional KGR overall anywhere in the world at a staggering 10.87%.
Over 10%?
Yeah, it's going from just $7.85 million to $27.55 million. That kind of double-digit growth, likely in smaller emerging economies within APAC, signals incredibly rapid adoption. Maybe it's new infrastructure, urbanization, untapped markets just hitting their stride. It really underscores the dynamism of the whole region.
Truly remarkable numbers there. Okay, let's move on. South America. How's the market looking there? The data shows it rising from $113.88 million in 2021 to $262.02 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of 7.19%. Healthy.
Definitely healthy. And Brazil is the clear leader down there. Started at $46.46 million, projected to hit $115.55 million. Its growth rate is strong too, 7.84% CAGR. Brazil's economic scale and tourism likely play a big role.
Okay, Brazil leading the charge. What about other countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile?
They're all showing pretty decent growth too, generally in that 6.2% to 7.5% CAGR range. So it looks like fairly consistent growth across several of the key economies on the continent.
Is there a rest of South America showing slower growth this time?
Yes, interestingly, that category shows a more modest KGR, around 5.26%. So unlike Europe or APAC, it seems the main growth in South America, for now at least, is concentrated in those larger national markets, especially Brazil.
Got it. Okay, 2 more regions to cover. Let's look at the Middle East. Starting point was $77.35 million in 2021, projected to grow to $177.88 million by 2033. That reflects a 7.42% CAGR. Another strong regional performance.
Right, and Saudi Arabia leads the market there. $28.16 million in 2021, heading towards $66.67 million. The CAGR is 7.68%. That fits with everything we hear about their big investments in tourism and business infrastructure, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And Turkey and the UAE, also key hubs.
Yep, both showing strong growth as well. Their KGRs are roughly in the 6.7% to 7.7% range, consistent with their roles as major travel and business centers.
Any standouts in the Middle East, like we saw with Denmark or Mexico?
Qatar, actually. It shows the highest projected growth rate in the region, an 8.55% CAGR. It's growing from $5.11 million to $13.34 million.
Over 8.5%. Interesting. Why Qatar, do you think?
Well, its profile as an international hub has certainly risen, hasn't it? Major events, strategic location. It makes sense that demand for this kind of travel convenience would accelerate there.
Yeah, that tracks. Okay, last region, Africa. The numbers show growth from $60.16 million in 2021 to $128.67 million by 2033. The CAGR is 6.46%.
And within Africa, Nigeria is showing the fastest growth, a 6.78% CAGR. Its market is expanding from $17.21 million to $38.22 million.
Okay. And South Africa?
South Africa is growing steadily too, but a bit slower, a 5.84% CAGR.
And the rest of Africa, is it lagging or leading?
Actually, the rest of Africa segment shows a slightly higher CAGR than Nigeria at 6.92%. So similar to Europe and APAC, it indicates that growth, while maybe starting from a lower base, is quite widespread across different parts of the continent as travel and hospitality develop.
Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground and literally traversed the globe looking at these numbers. So let's try and synthesize this. The big takeaway seems to be this isn't a niche market anymore. It's really surging. We're talking nearly $4.7 billion by 2033. It just underscores how much we crave that little piece of home, that coffee routine, wherever we are.
Exactly. I think this deep dive gives you, the listener, a really granular snapshot. You see the overall boom, yes, but you also see the hot spots. The really rapid expansion happening in places like India, across the rest of APAC, Mexico leading North America's growth rate, Qatar in the Middle East. These are the areas really driving that acceleration.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? Beyond just loving coffee, what are the deeper consumer trends pushing this? Is it just convenience? Is it something else? And maybe what other travel-related markets, maybe less obvious ones, are experiencing similar booms right now, driven by these same kinds of needs and desires? Something to ponder.
Okay, let's talk coffee. Specifically, that perfect cup you want when you're not at home. Powering a road trip, maybe out camping for the weekend, or just making the commute a little better. We all want that great brew wherever we happen to be. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty interesting. The travel coffee machine market.
Yeah, it sounds specific, but it's this really cool intersection.
Right, between our daily habits, some clever product design.
And maybe surprisingly, some pretty big global economics.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack what's really driving this market, what challenges the makers are up against.
Things you might not even think about.
Totally. And how these huge global shifts like new trade policies are shaking everything up, from the design board right down to, where these machines are actually made. Let's really get into how our simple need for a good coffee connects to these massive industry trends and global trade stuff. So, as someone watching the market, you've seen this boom in outdoor lifestyles, right? Travel, camping.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. Road trips, adventure tourism, van life, all of it.
And that must be a major engine for this market. People wanting portable ways to get their coffee fix while they're out exploring.
Precisely. But it's more than just, I need caffeine. What's really shifted, I think, is this whole home barista culture going mainstream.
Ah, interesting. So people expect more now.
Exactly. It's not good enough to just have coffee on the road. People want that same high quality, carefully made cup they get at home, even if they're miles from anywhere. So our personal tastes, our habits, they're directly pushing manufacturers towards very specific kinds of innovation, high-end portable stuff.
Okay, so the demand's definitely there. Convenience, quality. People want both.
Yeah.
But I imagine making that perfect portable machine isn't exactly easy. There must be some real headaches for the manufacturers.
Oh, for sure. There are some significant hurdles. One big one is that most of these portable gadgets, they're single serve.
Right, one cup at a time.
Which is fine for some people, but what if you drink like 3 cups? Or you're camping with family and need to make coffee for 4. It gets tedious.
That's a fair point about single serve. So I wonder, isn't part of the appeal that personal one-cup ritual when you're traveling solo? Maybe it's not always a drawback.
That's true. For the solo hiker, maybe it's perfect. But yeah, for that family in the RV brewing 4 separate pods or whatever, it takes time. So it really depends who they're aiming for. And then there's the whole power thing.
Ah, yeah. Where do you plug it in?
Exactly. A lot of them need electricity or they're manual, which means, physical effort. That can be a real pain or just impossible if you're properly off-grid. No outlets in the middle of the woods.
And if you are in the woods or just bouncing around in a car, durability must be a big one.
Huge. You want it light, easy to carry. But lightness often means, less sturdy.
Right. Not ideal if it's getting knocked about in a backpack or rattling around in the trunk.
Exactly. They're prone to wear and tear, maybe damage, especially outdoors. It's a constant balancing act for manufacturers. Weight versus toughness.
Okay, so given those challenges, the single-serve thing, power, durability, and the demand for quality and portability, How are designs changing? What trends are you seeing?
Well, the clearest trend is definitely towards compact and lightweight. That seems non-negotiable for most people.
Makes sense. Needs to fit in the bag.
Right. Backpacks, luggage, car consoles, size and weight are king. But the really interesting question becomes, how do manufacturers innovate, add features, and keep it small and light while also meeting those practical needs? It's tricky.
And it's not just about shrinking the electric machines, is it? I feel like I'm seeing more manual options.
Oh, definitely. There's a real surge in popularity for manual, totally electricity-free ways to make coffee on the go. Things like really robust French presses designed for travel, or those clever little pour-over devices.
Kind of low-tech, high-quality.
Exactly. It signals this desire for, versatility and complete freedom from needing a power source. It neatly sidesteps that whole power dilemma we talked about.
So we've got design, adapting to lifestyle. But there's this other huge piece, the global economic side. And one thing really stands out lately. We need to talk about the Liberation Day tariffs.
Ah, yes. Those definitely sent ripples through, well, pretty much everything. The Liberation Day tariffs, introduced back in 2025 by the previous administration, they were a really sweeping set of trade barriers.
The idea being to make imports way more expensive,
Yeah.
encourage domestic production.
That was the stated goal, yes. But the reality was the significant taxes, basically, anywhere from 10% to almost 50% added to the cost of goods, especially hitting imports from places like the UK, Australia, Vietnam, and a really big focus on China.
Wow.
And that wasn't all. There was also that blanket 25% tariff on basics like steel and aluminum, auto parts. You connect that to the bigger picture, and you really see how these high-level policies hit everyday products like your coffee maker.
And the knock-on effects are huge, I assume. Inflation, supply chains getting messed up.
Absolutely. A wave of inflation, serious disruption to supply chains that were built up over decades, and just higher costs to make everything, including those travel coffee machines we like. It's not abstract economics. It affects the price tag you see.
So how does that translate specifically for something like a coffee maker?
Well, for household appliances, that category saw a direct 20% import duty slapped on.
20%. Ouch.
Yeah, instantly makes planning your purchasing, your inventory, much harder for brands. And since China is just such a massive source for consumer goods in the U.S.,
Those tariffs hit really hard.
especially hard. You're seeing input costs jumping maybe 30% in some areas, plus shipping times are tight, creating these logistical jams. It's particularly tough for smaller companies without huge resources.
Okay, so facing all that higher costs, tangled supply lines, how are the companies actually coping? What are they doing to, stay afloat or even succeed?
Well, they're having to fundamentally rethink where they get their components and where they assembled the final product. That's the core of it.
So moving production.
Yeah, looking at nearshoring, that's like moving production from, say, China to Mexico if you're selling mainly in the U.S. Cuts down shipping, avoids some tariffs. They're also trying to find more suppliers, not put all their eggs in one basket, and sometimes even redesigning products slightly to use different materials that maybe aren't tariffed as heavily.
And I guess figuring all that out requires a ton of research.
Oh, absolutely. Market research is suddenly mission critical, not just nice to have. It helps them find alternative places to source from places with maybe more stable trade situations, reliable quality.
And figure out the costs.
Exactly. Detailed cost analysis, figuring out margins, and also, crucially, understanding how much of a price increase consumers will actually tolerate before they start buying.
So they're using all this data to, tweak designs, change prices.
All of the above. Or refining the product, making operations more efficient, adjusting pricing strategies. This kind of real-time market intelligence lets them do scenario planning, try to guess what regulations might change next, basically stay nimble. It's about making smart, data-backed decisions when everything feels uncertain.
And this has actually led to big geographic shifts in manufacturing, hasn't it?
It really has. You see major global brands actively moving operations. Vietnam, India, Mexico, they become really important hubs. And they're adopting these in-market-for-market strategies.
Meaning they make the stuff in the country where it's going to be sold.
Pretty much. Build it in Mexico for the Mexican and U.S. markets, build it in India for the Asian market, and so on. It sidesteps a lot of the cross-border tariff issues.
Smart. Any other big strategies? Tech playing a role.
Definitely. Lots of investment in things like AI for demand forecasting.
So using tech to predict what people will buy and when.
Exactly. Makes everything more efficient, less waste. And automation and procurement, streamlining how they buy materials. Ultimately, navigating this kind of choppy water comes down to using real-time information, making your supply chain flexible, and finding ways to still offer value to the consumer through, well, smart innovation and agility.
Wow. Okay, this has been fascinating. It really shows how even something quite specific like a travel coffee maker,
Yeah.
it's like a mini example of these huge global trends, right?
Yeah.
Consumer habits changing, technology, massive economic forces colliding.
It really is remarkable how our desire for convenience for a good cup of coffee connects directly to international trade policy and complex supply chains.
So maybe next time you're out somewhere, brewing a coffee on the go, whether it's a fancy electric one or a sturdy manual press, just take a second to think about the incredibly complex journey that little machine took to end up in your hands. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how many other simple, everyday things in your life are shaped by these same invisible but really powerful global forces?